I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is perception slash projection. And the conversation is really about what what is really happening, like what is our connection or our access to the external world, or how much of a subjective experience are we having. There should be fun conversation. So before we begin, let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, your molecules, your electrons, and creating this brilliant beam of light from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's just gently press our palms together. Very softly rub your fingers against your palms just to feel the deliciousness of that sensation. Really allow yourself to sink into it and be present to that feeling, and allow that feeling to bring you present into your body, this remarkable physical form that enables you to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So good to have you here with us this morning. And Rosalind, good morning. It's always great to start the day with you, Rosalind. Thank you so much for being such a consistent and regular presence here. So Rosalind says, we see things from where we are. Are we talking about seeing things from a different vantage point? Well, I think I love what you're saying. We see things from where we are. And so, and I don't know that there's any escaping that. And we can expand the awareness that dictates where we are. So I think that you just nailed it immediately. Are we even capable in any capacity of having an objective experience of life and the world? And I think that the answer is pretty flatly no. And this is something that is carried through in science as well, as we recognize the observer effect, which has been very heavily documented to say that the observation of a result in the act of observation is modifying the result. And the proof of this has been particularly with experiments around light, and the recognition that when not observed, light acts as a wave. When observed, it acts as a particle, and or the expectation impacted the effect. And this is such an interesting thing. So where this conversation comes from is that last night for movie night for Sustainability Now, we showed What the Bleep Do We Know, which is a 2004 film that was one of the forerunners of the consciousness films. I believe it was released even before The Secret. And it was a fascinating film, definitely dated, but a fascinating film in that it incorporated so many elements. It talked about quantum physics, it talked about our perception, and it talked about brain chemistry, and it talked about how we can impact our reality. So when we talk about seeing things from where we are, we typically are not necessarily conscious of where we are, first of all, and second of all, how that place, we'll call it a place where we are, influences our experience. And so the movie What the Bleep was kind of a debut for Joe Dispenza, who many of you have heard of, I'm sure. And he has been doing meditation retreats for years, and now is doing all kinds of documentation, scientific documentation of the impacts of meditation and situations where people have spontaneous remissions of all kinds of conditions that supposedly can't be treated, and really truly what things that we would consider miraculous. Anyway, his debut is kind of in this movie, but he talks about how there are chemical sets, and we've talked about this before, chemical sets that are attendant to every emotion that we experience. And when we have the ability to shift our emotions, we're actually also shifting our chemistry. And in this psychophysiological transformation that we have the capacity to make for ourselves, what also happens is our perception shifts. So if I'm happy, I'm going to be seeing things quite differently from a place of from if I had been coming from a place of fear or anger or victimization, for example. So to your question, Rosalind, are we talking about seeing things from a different vantage point? So in one respect, it's true that for the most part, we don't get to transcend ourselves. And I say for the most part, because we do know that it is possible to access a super conscious or supra conscious state where we go beyond the limitations and the identification with the body, the place, the time, the identity. Good morning, Gia. So good to have you here with us. We missed you. Welcome back. We're talking about projection and perception, and if they are indeed any different, or if they are in fact one and the same. I think that they are one and the same, even though we might assert, and sometimes aggressively assert, that they are different, that we're actually perceiving the truth, but we're always perceiving from the experience of ourselves. We can't not perceive from our place of perception, our personal experience, our personal beliefs, our projections. We can't exit those unless we get to this transcendent state. And that transcendent state is available, for instance, through meditation. Sorry, I've got like a little fuzz on my face. I don't know where it is. It's one of those things that you can't quite find, but it's just annoying. Anyway, so we do have the ability through meditation, for example, to access altered states of awareness that are transcendent, and we still have our own vessel to that is the vessel for the perception, right? We still have our own beingness that's having that experience, our physicality, even though in these states we're able to transcend our limited perception that is body bound. So outside of that, and it maybe even including that, our perceptions are dictated by our predispositions, by our physicality, by our beliefs, by our emotions. And so how do we shift our perception? We can shift our perception chemically. Lots of us do that, trying to alter our experience, right? That's one way. And chemically also means, for instance, with food, by if our sugar is low, if our blood sugar is low, when we eat, we have a shift of experience. We have a shift of perception. When we're feeling miserable, the world is a different place than when we're feeling on top of the world, right? And so I just find this whole notion of what's real and what's not real, that's been my question pretty much throughout my whole life. That's been my primary question: what's real and what's not real. And I still don't have an answer. If you have an answer, I'm really curious. So just by the way, if you guys are putting comments in the chat and you're not getting a response, it's because I don't see the comments. So please go to Enlightened World Network's Facebook page, and you can add your comments in there. So hi, Lisa. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's great to have you here with us this morning. And Rosalind says, we create our own reality. And that's so true. So that's what the movie What the Bleep Do We Know is about. And you can find it on Gaia TV, and there might be another place or two that you can also locate it. I did not find it for free on YouTube, for instance, but there's some subscription services that'll give you access to it. And it covers such a gamut of topics, and yet brings them all together in a really beautiful way, where we understand that we live in a relative universe, and that we are creators, and we are creating the universe all the time, or the universe of our experience. Rosalind says, what the bleep do we know? Cool, gonna check it out. Now, I just realized it's a bit of a throwback. It's from 2004, but really interesting. So Gia says, what's real and what's not real? In which context are you talking, Mira, Rubin? Pretty much in every context, Gia. So we can take this question to all kinds of depths, but we act as though we know what's real. And I guess that's kind of it's interesting, because I was going to say, I guess that's kind of our own way to sanity, is acting as if we know what's real. And it's also insanity in its way, because we also know that our perception is quite subjective. So that's where we're coming from, is the notion of subjective versus objective, I guess. Gia, I hope that answers, talking about context. What is it possible to transcend our subjective experience to experience something that's real with a capital R? So Rosalind says, what's real is the constant you. The true you has always been there. And I agree with you, Rosalind. And the question that I have is, do we ever access that experience? Do we ever experience our physicalness and our physical world through that constant presence that we are? Or is that constant presence animating this experience, and keeping itself in another kind of dimension? I don't have answers to these questions. They're questions that I indulge in, and have for pretty much most of my life. Again, no answers, except the one thing. So I can say that when I was about 15, and I know I've told you this before, but around when I was 15, I had a what I call an enlightenment experience, where I was talking on the telephone and I said, I know. And all of a sudden I transcended the I and the knowing to just like being all knowing. And it was timeless and beyond space. And it was in an ineffable state. And my whole life that has felt more real than any experience that I've experienced. So Jorge, welcome, welcome. So good to have you here with us. And Jorge says there are just questions. Yes, and sometimes the questions may move us closer to truth, and sometimes maybe not. Maybe they just take us down a rabbit hole. So that's one of the conversations from What the Bleep Do We Know, is how far down the rabbit hole do you want to go? And I think that that's what we do a lot here in these morning conversations, is we dive down the rabbit hole. Rosalind says the peacemaker, the you, is bridging the storyteller with the creator. Ooh, where is that from, Rosalind? That's quite beautiful. The peacemaker, the you, is bridging the storyteller with the creator. So the part of us that is manifesting in the world, going through our day-to-day whatever, I'm gathering that would be the storyteller. The creator may be the universal source, and maybe the peacemaker is our oversoul, or whatever we want to call it, like the individuated part of us that is beyond time, space, and form. So Rosalind says GP Walsh Satsang. Wow, very cool. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So and I wonder, I think that there. Okay, so Gia says, how did your experience when you were 15 years old change your life? Oh, that's such a good question, Gia. So truth is, I think that experience is probably I have experienced it as a source of great suffering. Whoops, that's my little alarm here. So I'm doing a protocol, and I get to drink an ounce of this water every hour. So I love the question, and I said that that revelation experience was a source of great suffering for me. I think I didn't drink enough. Hold on. Anyway, the reason we cause our own suffering, and I'm taking ownership for that. But I would say that it was a cause of great, or this. I suffered a lot around that experience because I spent pretty much the rest of my life trying to recreate it and trying to get back to that place of experience. And so now I'm not trying so hard, which is a relief. And there is a certainly an awareness that that other state exists, and that that's available to us all. And I am still intending to access that place of being again in my life, and perhaps as a persistent state of being. So in one respect, it created, I created a lot of suffering around having had that experience. And on another level, it served as a catalyst for me in my life to be, first of all, knowing that there was something more, that there was something much greater, and something way beyond what we think is going on here. That there's a reality with a capital R that's a whole lot bigger than anything we imagine. So there's that. And I think that it motivated me to be discovering, to be seeking answers to questions that most people wouldn't ask. So I've been doing that pretty much all my life. I would say that it was the single most impactful experience of my life, that it has shaped my life more directly than any other experience that I've had. So I can also, I said the greatest suffering that I've had was related to that experience. At the same time, some of the greatest joy as well. It's really become the foundation of my beingness here. And there was depression around it too. To know that there was this state of transcendent awareness available and then not being able to access it was deeply, deeply depressing. And I went through for many years a deep crisis of meaning. And it still comes up. It's, it's like, what's the point? What are we up to here? There are moments when it just doesn't make any sense at all. And where the fact that it doesn't make any sense at all becomes the pervasive feeling, instead of, well, it doesn't make any sense at all, and what a great ride, So Gia says, what are you seeking now apart from that experience? That's such a great question, Gia. I don't feel like I'm seeking anymore. Even that experience, what I think what I'm doing is more unfolding, more emerging than seeking. So there's a, as I think about seeking, there's sort of a desperation. It's coming from a place of absence of something, a place that's not in wholeness. And so I do feel much more whole at this point in my life. And as a result, I'm really just unfolding, and exploring and in my better states, having a joyful anticipation of what's next, So there's a much greater sense of acceptance, of presence, of curiosity. And sometimes I get really impatient. So, it's an interesting place. So Gia says, how do you deal with the belief? What's the point now? As it came to me today, in a way, it was a painful experience. Yeah, so what's the point can be a really painful experience. think that there are lots of people that fall into despair even around what's the point. And maybe the point is just to expand consciousness, to have experience. And I don't really believe, I know that humans leave legacies and are very connected with the idea of leaving a legacy and making a difference. And the thing is, we're dust. And whatever memory there is, even the people through history for hundreds of thousands of years, they're a construct. That's not the person. We are stories, we are storytellers. And so maybe the point, if the only point that I have come to is to awaken, that the point is to awaken. But I still don't have a clue why we would pretend we were asleep so we could wake up. So, I think the point is have experience, relish it. Don't take it so seriously, maybe. Anyway, I really appreciate you asking those questions, Gia. Thank you. And like I said, I don't have the answers. So these are questions that I roll around with a lot. Anyway, that's it for today. And it's Friday. So I invite you to go into the weekend and notice, what if this is a projection? Ask yourself that question. What if this were a projection? And what would I maybe like to see differently? What would I like to experience differently? Thank you so much. And I think that's you, Dido, even though Dido, it's coming up under Rosalind's name, which is very weird. Anyway, thank you to all of you. And it's such a delight and honor to be with you guys every morning during the week. And so that's it for me today. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. And I go live here each weekday morning on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page. And please check out the other awesome programming on Enlightened World Network, Enlightened World Living, EWN One with the Earth. And until next time, so much love to you and deep appreciation for all that you bring in these conversations. So much gratitude. Lots of love.